Hi guys, I'm Daksha. I am one of the tutors here at Altus One, and today we'll just be going through a little 8 to 10 minute video on how to develop an argument in persuasive writing. This will help you properly express your arguments, properly stepping through the logic that you have gone through in your head to justify them, and then explain why these arguments are actually useful and strengthen your persuasive writing altogether as a whole. So let's take this topic as a persuasive topic, and then we'll be taking 3 arguments, and then we'll step through the first argument. So the topic that I've chosen just for this video is should students be allowed to use devices in the classroom? And I've come up with 3 arguments for this. So one, I can argue that it can help students prepare this in the future, prepare key technological skills and all of those things for the future. Argument 2 is that it can encourage efficient learning. And then argument 3, that it provides access to new and improved learning resources. So over the next few slides, we'll be basically going through the step-by-step process. There's 4 key steps in terms of developing an argument, so it's an effective argument that you're making in your persuasive essay. So one thing that I have kind of noticed, and I'll preface this before we go into the actual lesson body, is a lot of students end up making a lot of assertions in their persuasive writing. And an assertion is essentially, they kind of state something is true, and while it may be true, it doesn't show any sort of critical thinking behind the logic that they have used to actually come to that conclusion, which as a whole is a very weak kind of technique that people use when they're trying to persuade someone of something. Let's go back and we can understand the purpose of a persuasive essay is to make sure that you can convince someone of your point of view. And if all you're making is assertions, i.e. you're just saying something is true, it's not a very effective technique in terms of trying to get someone to change their point of view to agree with you. So let's say that we're on the positive side. So we've taken the stance that students should be allowed to use devices in class. A lot of students come up and just say students should be allowed to use devices in class because it prepares students for the future, and then maybe give some examples and then go from there. While that is an argument that you can make, it's not a very strong argument because you haven't stepped through the logic in terms of why that's the case, why that's important, how does that actually occur. So that's kind of something we'll be focusing in the video today. So obviously, once we are developing an argument, the first thing we want to state is actually our argument itself. And this is where we actually make the initial assertion that I was talking about in the previous slide. And this happens in the topic sentence. So this is a 1-sentence summary on what you will actually be talking about in this paragraph. So for example, in the context of saying that it can help students develop key technical skills that can be useful in the future, we can say that by allowing students to use devices in class, students will be better prepared to transition into the real world where technology is an everyday part of life. As you can see in this 1 sentence, I have talked about what we are actually talking about. So students being used devices in class. Then I've kind of explained my argument. I've explained that the reason they should be using devices in class is that they will be better prepared to transition into the real world. And third is I've kind of provided a very small kind of justification as to why I think that's the case. And I say that students should be prepared for real world technology because it is an everyday part of life. And this basically kind of links into my next 2 steps that we'll be going through now. But just to summarize, we're doing a 1-sentence summary, linking it to your overall point of view, and then kind of explaining your argument, in this case being students will be better prepared to transition into the real world. So now we've gone to step 2 of developing an argument, and this is probably the second most important part in terms of developing an argument, and this is the elaboration stage. So the elaboration stage justifies or provides some sort of reasoning as to why the topic sentence, the sentence that we have done at the very start of the paragraph, is actually true. So in the context of this kind of argument that we are developing, I would say that the elaboration stage is justifying why does having devices in classrooms actually lead to better technological skills. We're not talking about the benefits or why it's good. We're just making the first jump in logic from getting devices in classrooms to better technological skills. So this is the first jump that we're making. And this can be used as a combination of some sort of evidence, some sort of explanation, and some sort of example that we can use to justify this logic. While you can use one, I would recommend to use at least two and maybe even three when you can, because a combination of these can make your argument much, much stronger. So just to summarize, this is some form of evidence, explanation, example, and some logical backing to justify the reasoning of your topic sentence. So in the context of this, we can use some sort of evidence by saying that 87% of all jobs require some level of proficient technological skills. So this is saying why we should have better technological skills. Then we're using explanation to justify the first jump. By using devices in class, students are able to subconsciously become better at using technology, allowing further development of key technological skills that they can and will need in the future. So this justifies or builds on my evidence statement where I've mentioned that jobs require professional technological skills, and I've explained how having devices in classrooms actually helps me achieve that form of evidence logic that I was talking about. And then we can use an example to further solidify the point. For example, a student writing an essay in class or on a laptop will develop a faster typing skills, improving their technological efficiency. So you can see the combination of these three statements have built on my argument and justified how bringing devices in class actually leads to better technological skills. Now this brings to the third and arguably the most important step in a persuasive argument. And this is telling me why what you have said is genuinely important. And this is the step that students most often miss out on, because they can come up and say that you get better technological skills, and then they can explain why you can get better technological skills. But me as a reader, or me as a marker, or someone you're trying to convince, isn't really sure as to why we actually want to achieve better technological skills. So why is what you're telling me actually important? So now that we've established that better technological skills will occur, you need to tell me why this is something good or something that we want to be achieving. So we can use this to justify better technology skills will allow students to transition into more technologically related jobs that pay highly and allow them to live more comfortably on higher wages. So this is some sort of thing that we can actually say that this is a benefit that we get when we have better technological skills. So if we're going to go back to the story that we're building in this argument, we've got step one as to you're going to tell me what we're going to achieve. Step two is then stepping out the first set of logic is how are we actually going to achieve it? And then step three is that final jump is to once we are achieving it, why is this something good that we want to achieve? One thing with the example is you want to make sure that this isn't an unreasonable example. For example, you're not going to come up and say better technological skills will help students create their own company and become multimillionaires. Although that could be for a very small portion, we want to talk it in a general sense and something that is generally pretty believable. So for example, you can say better technological skills can mean students will be easily transition into more tech-related jobs, which is not an unreasonable jump in logic, and then that can allow them to live on higher wages, live more comfortably, which is a logical statement that you can make. Now we've gone to the last step. Now that we've stepped into the argument, we want to reinforce to the reader the argument that we're making as a whole. So we want to summarize our argument and then link it to our overall contention, our contention being the point of view that we're making. So for example, here we can say, since devices in classrooms allow students to become proficient in technology, this allows them to open new career paths, and students should be able to use devices in class. So this is kind of the end result of this statement, where we've made our argument, justified it, told me why it's good, and now we're reinforcing the point by linking it back to the main contention. So this brings me to the end of this very short video. I hope you found this useful. We will be releasing new videos soon on persuasive writing, on maths, on English. So let us know what topics interest you, and then we'll get that sorted out for you as well. Thank you for listening, and I will see you in another video.